Hey, it's Mazzy and welcome back to the channel. Some vintage reissues and an archival reissue from the king of rock himself, Elvis Presley. I like what Sony RCA is doing, stripping back all that lush, schmaltzy overdubbing, a couple of records they've been doing over the last couple of years, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But then I'm going to go into the queen of French pop, who we lost in the last year, and two reissues from a big box set that I don't have, but I do have those records from another label that used to license them. I'll just mention that, but I'll talk about that. And I'm going to end up with a Brit-Pop crooner from the 1990s, celebrating a 20th anniversary of a really beautiful record that I didn't know. And I'll get to that. That's the last. That's at the end. But we're going to start with, of course, the king of rock, Elvis Presley. RCA, well, Sony Music, has been doing this series. This is Elvis Presley's Sunset Boulevard. And this is a 2 LP vinyl set. I'm going to talk about that, but also I want to showcase the 5 CD expanded, all in everything. Now, I want to make a couple of notes here, a couple of asterisks, because you need to know this. These Elvis Presley's, along with the French pop records, were sent to me by the labels, the final Brit-Pop crooner I bought myself with my own allowance. But I want to talk about that. But going back a year, last year, I got this record, Elvis Memphis, and I love this record. Now, we all know Elvis Presley was the king of the singles, king of the 45s. I mean, he came out of the time in the 1950s where singles were king, even into the 1960s. Had a load of top hits, number ones, top tens, and so on. And he was being pushed by his producer, Nashville producer, Felton Jarvis, to really get into the album thing, and he really wasn't having it. And of course, the ups and downs of the 70s were problematic to some level, but he makes some great records. But of course, that was the time with the overproduction and the Vegas sound, and was really the opposite of what was happening with albums in the 1970s, of bands that were writing their own music. So it was a difficult time for Elvis in terms of getting beyond his audience, but he still made some great records, and he had a killer band. And the records that I want to show, I mean, this was the last one from a year ago, where they stripped back all that schmaltz and all that orchestration, and it was a wonderful record. I showcased that last year, and now I want to showcase this new one, Elvis Presley Sunset Boulevard. Now, these are recordings. This is the vinyl version, which I don't even want to call it a sampler, because this is what I really latched onto. Now, one other note I need to say, you Elvis people, if you're watching, I am not an expert on Elvis Presley. Hopefully I get all this right, but again, these are my takes on this music, and you know way more than I do of every take, of every performance, of every record he's put out. So I'm just giving you my take from a music fan, a novice of Elvis, but I did see Elvis once. I saw Elvis at the Cow Palace in November of 1976, literally about 9 months before he passed, and I had a great time. It was over the top, overkill, but this period I want to talk about. This record covers some 1972 recordings and 1974 recordings, and this has Side 1, the 1972 Masters, again, stripped back with all that schmaltz overdubbing. That, to me, is not necessary. That kind of ruined it for my generation then, at the time, although I'm sure his audience loved it and ate it up. Then Side B is the 1975 Masters. And then on here, again, Side 3 and 4 are 72 and 75 outtake highlights. So this, in essence, is a sampler of the 5-disc CD set. And if you're an Elvis fan, that's the place you want to dive into, that 5 CD set. If it was Beatle outtakes and Beatle rehearsals that are on there, I'd be all in. But I'll talk about that in a minute. But again, what I love about this, you have the Masters from 1972, and this was a period of time where Elvis literally just broke up with Priscilla. I think it was like 2 or 3 months in 1972 after him and Priscilla Presley broke up. And so he was in this sort of downer mood and doing the crooner stuff, doing the ballads, the low-key romantic songs. And there's some songs on there that literally you can tell that his heart is still broken and he's still going through the turmoil of whatever he felt at the time. Songs like Separate Ways, It's a Matter of Time, For the Good Times, and Fool. But opening up with Always on My Mind, a great song that probably a lot more people of my generation know because of Willie Nelson's great cover on that. But there was a song on here that the producer, Felton Jarvis, brought him, an upbeat rocker, and he didn't want to do it. And that ended up becoming his final top 10 hit. I think it hit number 2. It was surpassed in the number 1 slot by Chuck Berry's My Ding-a-Ling. Oh my God, can you imagine that? I mean, losing number 1 spot to that. Of all the Chuck Berry songs, Chuck Berry's, I think, only number 1, at least in the 1970s, but the song is Burning Love. And it's killer on here. I love that song. Even the overproduced version is such a great song. You know that song. If you haven't, you need to go listen to it. Burning Love is on here. This is the version stripped back without all the background, the excess stuff you don't need. And then on side C, the outtake highlights has a take 2 of that. But again, other songs on here, Always on My Mind, again, an alternate version. There's a great version of the Pointer Sisters Fairy Tale on here. Of course, take 1 of Trouble, Trouble. And, you know, some maybe lesser crooner things like the Green Grass of Home and others. But this is really an excellent, I Can Help, the great Billy Swan song, which was like the only Billy Swan song, great country thing. So this is a mix of crooner, country, and rock and roll, and it's killer. And of course, it has the TCB band, which is Taking Care of Business band, that great band, I tell you, from 1969 till Elvis Presley's death. This band was a killer band. You have James Burton on guitar, that pink paisley guitar. Now, these musicians I got to know not because of Elvis Presley, but because of Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris. On GP and Graham Parsons' Grievous Angel, he yells out James Burton and his pink paisley guitar. Also on piano on those albums that I learned was Glenn D. Harding. And of course, John Wilkinson plays here, didn't play with Graham Parsons as far as I know. You got Ronnie Tutt on the drums, and you got the Sweet Inspirations, this great, powerful vocal backup group, and J.D. Sumner and the Stamps, another kind of a gospel-like group. I mean, the background singers were great in person, and I vaguely remember that massive Cow Palace show. But the band is what makes it. And having seen those musicians, Glenn D. Harding and James Burton on guitar, one of my favorite guitar players, and smokes with Elvis Presley and smoked with the Hot Band with Emmylou Harris when I saw her in 1975 after her debut came out. What a great band. And Elvis had a great band, and that's what's great to hear these songs pure, remixed, basically brought back here. This is done by Matt Ross Spang, the Grammy Award-winning producer who basically stripped everything back, and I believe he did that Memphis album last year. Now let's get into this Sunset Boulevard. Why is it Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood? And I need to bring about the CD box to talk about this, because for someone like me, the LP version is the way to go. This is expanded. If I was an all-in Elvis person, this would definitely be the way to go. But the one thing that disappoints me about that album version, which I wish they would what they would place in there, is the booklet. You know, booklets, yeah, everyone's got a little extra booklet in here, but this taught me a lot about this recording period. And again, we're talking about Sunset Boulevard. We're talking about the RCA recording studio, 2 massive studios that saw the likes of the Jefferson Airplane first 2 albums. Surrealistic Pillow was recorded there. The first Grateful Dead was recorded there. RCA was one of the prominent recording studios in LA. This is really about those sessions in Hollywood. Most of the stuff he recorded there were soundtracks to the films, but you got this great series of essays on the studio. Introduction by the great Jerry Schilling on here. And then where do I go from here? Where is Elvis going recording these songs? 1972 and 1975. Beautifully annotated. You go through each song, you go through each session here. They talk about literally the times they're recording, like March 28th, 7 p.m., March 29th to 4 a.m. Man, all night recordings on here. Really cool stuff. They talk about the songwriters on here that he covered, because obviously Elvis, like a lot of artists from his time period, were interpreters more than songwriters, although him and the Colonel did get their name on some songs early on. But this is brilliant. Of course, disc 1 and 2 is the expansive version of what's on the record. You have more songs, more masters from this period in 1972 and 1974, stripped back, and they're just the essence of this great band. Again, I can't stress how wonderful this band is. And, seeing them in the Cow Palace with the big whole spectacle, I can't even remember if that's the time when he was starting out with the theme from 2001 or earlier, probably earlier, but I don't really remember. Maybe God Bless America or something like that at that point. Because, in a way, it's kind of like what my generation thought of Neil Diamond when he went all Vegas and everything. Big production, massive thing. It wasn't the rock clubs we were seeing, the rock shows at Winterland or the Fillmore or the clubs in the 1970s. But seeing Elvis and Frank Sinatra around that same time, I had to see these people because they're so influential in music, and it was great. Now, going to this, I said, they expand more so. And if you're an Elvis freak, this is probably a necessity. It's like, again, as I said, me with the anthologies and the Beatles anthologies and the Bob Dylan, those two artists are artists that I am all in on. And if I was like that with Elvis, this would be a deep dive, and a great deep dive. Now, discs 3 and 4 are rehearsals. And these are like fly-on-the-wall recordings that are really kind of interesting. In fact, 3 and 2/3 of 4 sound great. You got to crank them up a little bit, but they're quality recordings. You hear a lot of the Elvis talking back about the musicians. One time he's talking about someone needs to take a pee break. If you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. He's kind of riffs it a couple of songs as they're rehearsing. I really like the version of You Lost That Love and Feeling, that great song by the Righteous Brothers that Phil Spector produced. And I like his version on here. Now it gets problematic in here. And I think this part of this set is really only for the diehard fans, the freaks that want everything, that need every morsel of an artist. And I know what that's like. I'm not like that with Elvis, but I totally get it. But the last, 6 or 7 songs on disc 4 and all of disc 5 are from August 1974. The recording quality is subpar. Better than some bootlegs I've heard of artists, but still subpar. It's not a great listen. For me, it was a one-time listen, and I'm off. But for me, all the rehearsals on disc 3 and 2/3 of disc 4, I'll be listening to several times. But again, the meat of this, for me, for my interest in Elvis Presley and music, are the master tapes and the elimination of all the background, the unnecessary things that Elvis and his producers were doing in the 1970s. I like the stripped back Elvis. I liked a few years ago, they put out a record, Down in the Jungle Room at Graceland, which is a killer release too. So last year's Memphis 2LP version and this year's Sunset Boulevard RCA Studios, this is the killer for me. And to me, it's the sweet spot for this record. Basically the meat and potatoes, or what they call in photography, the hero shot. That's the hero shot for me on this. But the booklet on this, to me, is essential. And it's nice to read about RCA Studios, the history of RCA Studios, which no longer exists, by the way, unfortunately. But it's a great part of this release. So Elvis Presley, Sunset Boulevard, the 2LP set, or the 5-disc RCA set. This is the killer part of it also. Reading this while I listen to this entire set. Killer stuff from Sony Music. Now we go to the queen of French pop, the 1960s, Françoise Hardy. Now, I believe we lost her in the last year. Long career, long life, beautiful records. The queen of yee. Now, yee, Y-E-Y-E, was kind of the French term, yeah, based on the Beatles, yeah. French pop of the 1960s. These ingenues, these beautiful female vocalists that just sang in a really kind of sexy, sensual, French way. Now, she had hits all over the world, most in French, but some in English. She had hits in the UK. I think she had 1 or 2 hits in America. This is a new series released by Omnivore Records. Now, I have a series from 10 years ago or so that Light in the Attic put out. I have all the entire catalog. This is available as a huge box set or as individual releases as far as I know. Omnivore out of LA does a great series of mostly reissues, some new issues, but they've been doing some great stuff over the last, I don't know how long, forever. But this is an artist that I am all in on, and I highly recommend these. These two, one came out in 1963, one in 1964. I'm not sure which one. This is a single LP version. It has an extra alternate version of one of the hits on here. This one comes in a beautiful red vinyl with the disc Vogue, which is a replica of the original. The next one has a lot of outtakes that crosses over 2 LPs. And this one, it comes with a lovely orange vinyl. But all these, I think, are available individually as well as a massive box set. I am all in on Françoise Hardy. I just love her kind of sexy sound. Of course, there's Brigitte Bardot, who did things. There's Jane Birkin, of course, the English woman married to Serge Gainsbourg, that collaborated with him on some things. Not a big fan of her voice as much as I like her beauty and everything. I think this is the kicker. There's Francie Gall, who did Zooby Zooby Zoo that you might have seen covered on the TV show Mad Men. But I love this French yee sound, pop sound. There's a fabulous book. I'll put an insert right here. The Yee Girls. I highly recommend this book as you're listening to these records. That goes through the entire catalog. Now, I don't collect all Yee Girl releases, but I think if you have to pick one, this is the one. If you can find it. Now, this is also from Omnivore. This came out earlier this year. Was it this year or last year? A Record Store Day. This is a double comp, like a best of. So I don't think this is still available. You might seek it out. This is a double album. So this is a great overview of Françoise Hardy if you're just going to find one record. But either way, these are fabulous records. It's fabulous music. French pop. This one's also in red. This is like a comp, the greatest hits. Françoise Hardy and Vogue, best of 1962 to 1967. That's the period of time these represent. They're pop. I think there's one that has a little bit of a folk country thing towards the end. A fabulous series of records. And Omnivore did a great job on these right now. And I want to thank them for sending these along. I picked this up on Record Store Day myself. But great stuff. And finally today, I'm going to end up with a 20th anniversary issue of Richard Hawley's Cole's Corner. This is the Brit-Pop crooner from Sheffield, England. Now, up until a few years ago, I had no idea who Richard Hawley was. I was in a stereo shop, Gig Harbor, just hour and a half from Seattle, and they were playing this song, and I thought it was like a deeper song of Morrissey that I'd never heard, and I just fell in love with it, and I seeked out Richard Hawley. When I went last year to London, my friend David Ellis brought me a kind of a rare Richard Hawley records. His records seemed to be in and out of print, but right when I was there was a best of that came out. But this was a record I've been looking for, and it was literally just reissued. in the UK. I assume you can get it here. I ordered it from the UK. I pre-ordered it months ago from his own site, and it just arrived. I am in love with this record. Now, Richard Hawley was part of the Brit-Pop scene, but his bands weren't as big as obviously Pulp and Blur and Oasis and Suede and those. But he was part of that scene, and I believe he did one tour with Pulp with Jarvis Cocker on that. But he made a series of solo albums. I think this is the third or fourth solo album. I had never heard it up until recently. I love this record. 20th anniversary issue of it. Apparently Cole's Corner is an infamous venue in Sheffield, England, his home. He's very all into the Sheffield. And it's a very romantic place where you can take your dates. This is a schmaltzy, syrupy, beautiful crooner album from someone you wouldn't expect to be singing like this, at least from an American point of view. I find, and I've discovered over the forever, that there's a crooner attachment of young artists that are popular in the UK that just don't cross over here as much. I mean, here it would be a novelty album for someone to do something like this, but this is a stunning album. Is there orchestration? Yes. Is there a retro sound? Yes. It comes from the 50s and 60s. If you know Santo and Johnny's beautiful guitar instrumental pieces, it's kind of like that backing up. He's a great guitar player. He's done a lot of session work. Sleepwalk is the name of that Santo and Johnny song I was thinking of. You got that twangy, reverb-drenched, great guitar lead sound that he plays, but then it has this beautiful crooner. He does these ballads like No Tomorrow. There's such romantic records on here. I mean, the whole thing is a romantic dreamscape. This is a lovely record, and he puts out this wonderful album. This particular record is on black vinyl. I know there was a lot of different versions of it. I don't really care. I just want the music, stupid, right? As I say many times. But I tell you, this is one of my favorite reissues of the year in terms of a record that I didn't have. I don't know what originals go for. Of course, this was during the CD era when CD was king, but he's waiting for his date. It looks like she's not showing up, right? I mean, songs on here like Cole's Corner, Just Like Rain, Hotel Room, Darling Wait for Me, The Ocean, and on and on and on. A spectacular, beautiful recording. Again, he's got this low voice like Morrissey. If Morrissey did, I mean, Morrissey is a crooner in a lot of ways, and I am a big fan of Morrissey, but he takes musically and sonically a different direction, and sometimes Morrissey's trying to be clever, which he sometimes is when he shows up, and he likes to be he has a play on words. And the only reason I compare him to Morrissey is because when I first heard him, I was thinking, wait a second, I don't know that Morrissey song. You can hear a little bit of that Northern England. Of course, he's from Sheffield. Morrissey's from Manchester, you know. I was in Sheffield once in 1980 and didn't know who Richard Hawley was. He probably wasn't even making records then. Anyway, Richard Hawley's Cold Corner, a wonderful, a beautiful record. Check it out on the streaming services because it's really a stunner if you like that kind of crooners with a little twangy ventures like Santo and Johnny sound as the bedrock of it. Fantastic stuff. So, the king of rock, Elvis, the queen of French pop, Francois, and the Brit-Pop crooner, Richard Hawley. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the music. New records. Always check them out as he loves you.